Russian soldiers are now rioting in their barracks and running away from their position because they know what awaits them. Without any training, without proper equipment, without proper command structure, only thing that's certain is that once they get to the front line, their days are numbered on this earth. And this isn't even just one isolated incident. In fact, I have so many clips today that I had to leave some out because I don't want to make this video too long. It's extremely common that soldiers are not willing to go to the front line and are being forced to go fight. This kind of reaction that's all too common in Russian army also has a negative impact on the mentality of soldiers who are willing to fight but see their fellow soldiers not being 100% committed, which breaks down the trust in any team. So let's get into all this and more with former Navy SEAL Chuck Farr, who's going to be sharing what kind of psychological impact this has on Russian soldiers on the battlefield. But like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. YouTube isn't a fan when we share these videos that are not advertiser friendly. So your likes help us out tremendously in the algorithm. Let's start.
Okay, we've got some obviously dissatisfied Russian troops. In most armies, it isn't really a good idea to start smashing up the barracks. It's a good way to have the military police show up. You know, morale in the Russian army is really pretty low, and there's no reason for it ever to get higher. You know, you think of the training a U.S. Marine goes through, that carries over into their service career, right? Their ability to follow orders, stick together, do what they're told, have a certain esprit de corps. None of that happens in the Russian army. Some of these guys get taken off a Moscow subway, and 5 days later, they're on the zero line. They, you know, if you're a civilian listening to this, they don't even have your training on Call of Duty. They don't know the first thing about surviving on a battlefield or following orders. And you take a person like that, who's still a civilian, and you keep leading them day after day on meat wave attack after meat wave attack, where they lose 60 to 80% of their people. And this is what happens, man. They're smashing up the barracks. But what happens in the Russian military, I can promise you, that guy breaking out those windows, he is either dead now because they shot him behind the barracks, or he's been sent strapped to a tank as a drone roof, you know. So the Russian army doesn't put up with this stuff.
So let's finish this clip. Then I actually have something referring to how you talked about they don't get much training. We have a prisoner of war talking about that exact thing.
Oh, man. Yeah, you know, and I think a couple of cocktails are probably part of this this whole scene as well.
We actually covered this in a video, but Russians drink double the amount of alcohol compared to Americans.
Wow.
And what makes it worse is we drink a lot more beer, they drink a lot more vodka.
Yeah, I tell you, and I think about the average listener here. Think about how much your average college student drinks. You know, it's a lot. Twice as much as that. So, you know, there's the other thing is you don't want to go into combat drunk or high. I tell you, you don't want to do that. Your reactions are slower. You don't know what's going on. And in fact, these guys get to the front. They don't know the difference sounds between incoming and outgoing. They have no idea, which is one of the reasons when they get to an objective, they can't hold it. They don't have any idea how to do that. So again, it's one of the reasons, look, the war is coming, it's going on, I promise you, for a couple of more years, but Russia isn't going to win it. They can't. By this time next year, they will have lost 1 million men in this war. They thought it was going to be over in 72 hours. You know, 720,000 casualties later, today, you know, things aren't going real well, man. I mean, let's call it like we see it.
Chris Owoki on Twitter shared more details about this story. It's pretty interesting. Russian soldiers who recently rioted in a barracks near Novosibirsk and tried to escape from it were protesting against being sent back to Ukraine despite being bedridden, on stretchers, and blind, in the words of the commanding officer. The riot took place on November 13th at barracks in Kochenyevye. At least 10 soldiers escaped from the barracks, but have since been recaptured. Soldiers from all over the Central Military District who had previously voluntarily left military units for various reasons unrelated to service are reported to have been assigned to the brigade, likely as an administrative measure. This includes numerous wounded men. According to one of the escapee, the unit command simply treated us badly. All the relevant documents, videos, voice messages have been sent to certain structures. That's it. The investigation is underway. Another soldier who was present at the time of the riot says there were at least 100 to 120 people in the barracks. There were probably only 8-10 people ready to go beyond the tape, i.e. the front line. All the other patients are on crutches with limited mobility. All the men were brought there on the night of November 8th, apparently to concentrate them in one place prior to redeploying them to the front lines, but without first assessing their fitness to be deployed or even giving them medical treatment. In the morning, the 6 soldiers began writing reports to the commander about providing medical care and military medical examination. But these reports were never sent anywhere. There was a guy, he was missing half a foot on both legs. His military unit, I don't know which one, fired him, discharged him. Somehow they shoved him into the unit, and he was there for a month. The command office told the men, "You are not a transit camp here." They sent everyone here to the front, bedridden, on stretchers, blind. No one cares what condition you're in. The soldiers say that he and his fellow soldiers repeatedly asked for medical help. Despite all these issues, it's become a common practice for Russian army to send injured and bedridden soldiers to the front line. This just shows how desperate the situation is getting for Russia. All the while, Putin is trying to push as hard as he can before January 20th. He has set the deadline to take back the Kursk from Ukrainian soldiers before January 20th. Because of this sudden push, Russia has given up on any kind of training for its new recruits. They're just sending them in with less than a week of training, and that means some of these soldiers don't even know how to take apart their rifle or even reload when they run out. Here's Chuck Farce sharing more details.
All right. Russians are also famous for recruiting among the ethnic minorities. This gentleman is a Buryat from eastern Siberia. He's been captured. You can see that his uniform, these are the things you look at when you capture a prisoner. I look at his uniform, it's not that dirty. It's not that ripped up. So I'm assessing, and I haven't seen the end of this video yet. Look, this guy just got there, right? So let's see how much training he's got. All right, enlisted, so 15 October, and when did he get into combat? Oh, man. All right. He signed up while he was drunk, and he got 4 days of training. Normally, you can't even draw your gear in 4 days, right? You don't even have your boots. You don't have your socks. You don't have your web belt. You don't have your field jacket. So, in 4 days, this guy is essentially a civilian, right? And I always like to say this. People at home listening, imagine if I just grabbed you right now and 4 days later, I put you in an operational SEAL platoon. Man, is that going to rock your world or what? Here's the other thing. Could my guys in the SEAL platoon, could we count on you? Do we think you've been stress tested like us? Do we think you have the, just the tools to do it? And I'm not talking about physical conditioning. I'm talking about knowing one end of your rifle from the other. There are reasons why they take an AK-47 apart in front of a SEAL blindfolded and you got to put it back together. I mean, there's a reason we do that. I hate to say it, but I actually feel sorry for guys like this. This guy won the lottery by getting captured. He won the lottery. Because otherwise, this guy is going to be the cheese in the macaroni and cheese at the side of the road. So good on him, He's coming home. Good for him.
I know Ukrainians were advertising to North Korean troops on the Russian side, basically saying that, hey, our prisoner of war camps are better than North Korea, how you're living there.
Yeah, absolutely. Better medical care, better food, and you're not going to get executed for listening to the wrong radio station, right?
All right, let's finish the clip.
Yeah, it's normally name, rank, and serial number, but nobody briefed him on that. So he's been in combat. He arrived there on the 28th. He's been in combat, what, 2 weeks now?
Roughly 2 weeks he got captured.
So I also like to look at this. This is Moscow's priority operation. Retake Kursk Oblast. That's it. Job one. How are we going to man this operation? Well, we're going to send our best troops, like this poor joker, right? 4 days of training, thrown into the most important military operation that Putin has, which, by the way, he says is going to be over by the 20th of January. Sam, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. I think that's the 4th deadline he has set.
Man, he's good at setting deadlines. Yeah, any regrets, dude? Yeah, this is pretty standard. And again, there's a death loop going on here. Everyone who could have trained this guy has been killed in Ukraine, right? So there are no boot camps that you arrive at and get 3 months of training. There is no advanced infantry training where you get 6 more months of training before you ever got deployed to a unit. And then there's another step. You get out of boot camp, you get out of infantry training, and you show up at your battalion, your regiment, wherever you're going to go. Then you get worked up for the deployment. So then there's 6 or 8 more months of training just with your unit, large-scale unit. You go to Texas. You go to the National Training Center. You go to Fort Polk, Louisiana, but you maneuver with your element. This is one of the reasons why, look, Russia isn't going to win this war. If they could, they would have already, right? If they could capture Kyiv and drive to the Dnipro River, they would have done it. They can't do it. And the rest of the war is going to be chumps like this in company, platoon-sized meat wave attacks. And I don't like even to call them meat waves because Russian officers don't want to risk large units. So you give a Russian colonel a battalion, and he will fight it one platoon at a time. A company, first platoon, you're up. You attack the target in the morning, and A company, second platoon in the afternoon, attacking the same target along the same line of advance, along the same vector, and the Ukrainians are just waiting. And after you've wiped out A company, you go to B company, one platoon at a time. Here's what that Russian officer doesn't do. He doesn't have the training as a battalion commander to fight a multi-company engagement. He doesn't have the military training because why would he? 20 years of Putin ruling. He doesn't promote good officers. There's no military meritocracy. When you're a lieutenant, you shut up and you watch the major trade equipment and make money. Then when you're a captain and a major, you get in on the grift too. By the time you're a colonel or a general, you're making hundreds of thousands of rubles trading uniforms and tank engines and whatever you got. So these clowns are now Putin's officers. So an inept military, it's not Putin's problem, it's his legacy, man. He built it. And he's got soldiers like this led by clown officers. And there's another reason why. They'll never win this war, Sam. It takes a generation to reboot a military. If he brought everyone home right now and said, okay, we're going to train everybody, that takes a generation. All of these corrupt officers, they've got to die off, man. Right? You've got to root them out, root and branch. it's an insurmountable problem.
As you guys just saw, we had to blur some sections of the video because YouTube always demonetizes and restricts our videos whenever we share footage from the battlefield and the front lines. But we like doing these, and I hope you guys like watching them, especially when we have experienced guests on who break down the situation on the front lines with these clips. To continue doing this type of content, we recently launched our Patreon, where you can watch uncensored video, uncensored breakdown of the clips from the front lines, and you can also support our content. This is not something you have to do, but if you're able to support us, it costs as little as just $5 a month, and it helps us out tremendously to continue making this type of content. So if you're able to, you can sign up now by clicking the link in the description or scanning the QR code on your screen. Thank you so much. Now here's our previous segment on Australia helping Ukraine beat Russia.
As if things couldn't get any worse for Putin, Australia is offering assistance to Ukraine that could completely alter the course of the war. The Australian company Electro-Optic Systems will be transferring 160 Slinger anti-drone systems to the Ukrainian military. Drones have been used by both sides with devastating impacts on lives, infrastructure, and artillery. But with these Slinger systems, Ukraine is going to be able to take out Russia's drones, reducing the number of airstrikes that will be launched against it. Today, we're going to talk about how Russian drones, or should I call them Iranian drones, have been causing huge problems in Ukraine, and how Ukraine's poised to thwart those attacks with new Australian help. We love being able to update you on the war in Ukraine, and you can help continue to do that. Liking this video and sharing it with your friends and family helps us to push against the YouTube algorithm to keep bringing you content. Russian drones have been wreaking havoc in Ukraine for the past 2.5 years. But these systems, courtesy of Australia, are going to change everything. Ukrainian ambassador to Australia Vasyl Miroshnichenko had this to say: Ukrainian cities are being attacked by drones and missiles on a daily basis, and we've been seeing these drones now for 1.5 years. The Slinger system provides a unique way to target moving targets, especially when we can intercept their drones. Up until this point, Ukraine did have other anti-air systems, but we're going to discuss the reasons why they weren't a hit. Firstly, Ukraine had access to the US Patriot and NASA MS systems. The Patriot is a long-range surface-to-air missile defense system that's able to intercept incoming threats like tactical ballistic missiles and cruise missiles. The problem with these systems is that they're costly to operate. The cost of operating them could reach millions of dollars, and most of the time they're being used to take down $10,000 Shahed or FPV drones, which are much cheaper to produce. The Slinger system is a worthy replacement because the cost of engagement is not as high. Currently, in order for either side to be able to shoot down drones, they're using missiles that cost 10 times as much as the drones. In most cases, these missiles cost around $200,000, and they're being used to take down drones that are worth $10,000. With the Australian Slinger system, drones will be taken down at a cost between $155 and $1,550 per engagement. Before we talk about the design of the Slinger, let's quickly go over how Russia's been using drones to cause havoc in Ukraine, so we can get a sense of why Slinger is such a game changer. The timing of this exchange is also perfect, as it comes right at the moment when Ukraine is picking up momentum. Due to the massive losses that Russia's experienced, it's been looking for a way to preserve its combat power. Ukraine has also been trying to do the same thing. This means that both parties have turned to drones as a way to get an edge in the war. As time has gone by, both parties have increased the use of drones drastically, and the impact on lives and infrastructure has been detrimental. Another thing that Russia's been using drones for is reconnaissance. These types of drones are used for surveillance and gathering information to prepare for missions. Russia uses its Orlan 10 drones for long-range reconnaissance, and the data that's collected is then sent back to headquarters. What's more a cause of concern for Ukraine is that Russia's partnered up with Iran to receive thousands of the kamikaze Shahed drones. The Shahed 136 drones are attack drones with a triangular wing that allows them to dive toward a target carrying a warhead of around 80 pounds. These one-time use drones fly at fast speeds and can inflict serious damage. The US and the West called out Iran for supplying drones to Russia because it violated the UN Security Council Resolution 223. Iran denied selling the drones to Russia, but emphasized that it had the right to sell arms to other nations. Russia has used over 4,000 of these drones in Ukrainian territory. Areas like Kharkiv have really felt the brunt of the attack, as the drones have been used to target population centers and power stations to try to deprive Ukraine of electricity and heating. In the western city of Lviv, Russia has heartlessly used drones to strike residential buildings and a school. One Ukrainian battalion commander, known by the name Speaker, does an interview at his base, saying, "In the last 2 weeks, drones are attacking more and more and more because the Russians, they're studying. They're educating their drone operators, and it's getting harder to fight them." An even bigger threat to Ukraine has been the first-person view drones. These small drones are dangerous because they have various functions. They're used by smaller units to gather information and can spot fires from a mile away. So far, Russia has used them to target tanks, artillery pieces, armored vehicles, and even soldiers. What's even more petrifying is the fact that these first-person view drones can also be used for bomb dropping, and Russia currently has hundreds of factories producing these drones on a mass scale. Modifications are also being made that would allow the FPV drones to carry anti-tank grenades, regular hand grenades, RPG warheads, and mortar shells. Now that Ukraine has the capacity to take out Russia's reconnaissance drones and FPV drones, Russia will have to rely on its on-the-ground artillery to do the damage. The problem with that is that we already know that its military is stretched thin and ill-equipped for the coming months of the war. Australia's weapon of destruction is about to be Russia's headache. So, let's talk about the design of the Slinger system. The machine is lightweight and can be mounted onto vehicles like pickup trucks. This system has the capacity to take down hostile unmanned aerial vehicles at a distance of more than 2,624 feet, or 739 meters. According to EOS, the design of the system is inspired by the historical Slinger soldier, who used to be able to launch small stones to defeat enemies from a distance. This Australian-made system is a modern version of this, with a 1.81-inch cannon that uses specialized ammunition. This anti-drone system has been developed for conflict regions and will work perfectly in Ukraine. The system has been nicknamed One Shot, One Kill because it's been designed for accurate, on-the-move engagements that deliver superior performance. This Australian drone killer weapon weighs a staggering 700 pounds and has 2 guns. The 1.18-inch M230 LF Bushmaster chain gun and a Belgian-made FN Mag 58 7.62 caliber machine gun. The ammunition drum has the capacity to hold 150 rounds. Another pretty cool feature is the tailor-made belt, which can be attached to the machine gun. The shooting speed is incredible, and in a single minute, this beast can shoot up to 200 rounds. The FN Mag 58 takes it up a notch and can shoot around 650 to 1,000 rounds per minute. The machine's detection technology is extremely accurate, and once something comes into the gun's range, no drone will make it out alive. These advanced detection tools can pinpoint potential drone threats immediately, and their response time is impeccable. It also has a 4-dimensional sensor unit that emits lasers to measure distances accurately, and a primary radar to find, fix, track, and destroy enemy drones. The radar system is a miniature version of the famous Echo Guard, which is an American-made radar system. At this juncture, we have to stop and discuss the Echo Guard to give a proper picture of how amazing this device is. The Echo Guard is basically like your top-notch FBI system, which can find, classify, and track targets of any size in some of the worst weather conditions. The Echo Guard is what's known as a phased array radar, which means it uses energy pulses to collect data that picks up on threats. The system operates in the K-band frequency range of 24.05 to 24.65 GHz, and all you need to know is that this is really high and produces good quality data. The radar system is also able to work simultaneously with the guns, allowing the system to attack targets while also tracking the drones. It can also scan up to 80 degrees in the air with a 120-degree cross-section, providing more than enough coverage for the Slinger's own field of view. Now let's talk about the most important part, which is the gun's shooting capabilities, so we can understand what helps it shoot targets so precisely. A gimbal system is an electronic stabilization platform that helps to orient the weapon during movement and vibration. This system helps the Slinger to stay on target regardless of the shooter and the drone's speed. The gimbal system reduces the margin of error for the Slinger to almost nothing, justifying the phrase used to describe it, one shot, one kill. In terms of its range, the Slinger can detect targets over 7.45 miles or 12 kilometers away with its daylight camera, and 8.9 miles or 14 kilometers with its thermal imaging camera. For high-quality firing, a potential drone needs to fly within 3.47 miles or 5.5 kilometers of the daylight camera and 3.1 miles or 4.98 kilometers of the thermal imager. When inside this radius, the Slinger will engage the target because the operator will have enough information about the drone's bearing, range, and speed. If the drone gets closer than this, the operator will even be able to tell the exact make, model, and type of drone. The Slinger also has a few other sensors, including a wind sensor that's mounted on the top right of the unit. This sensor feeds wind data into the Slinger's algorithm that's controlled by the 50-pound control unit situated inside the vehicle. From this control unit, an operator can accurately find, fix, and engage targets with the push of a button. Receiving such state-of-the-art equipment from Australia is really going to help Ukraine. Electro-Optics Systems was able to design such an amazing weapon due to the experience that it has in Australia's space industry. Let's give you some insight into the company's credentials. Recently, we crossed 1 million subscribers. Ever since then, we've been flooded with emails asking us questions and advice about growing a channel on YouTube. Even though we try our best to reply to every single email, sometimes these take up too much time or they ask the same question we've answered before. That's why we've decided to put all of our YouTube advice into one email bootcamp for completely free. So if you're someone who's interested in starting your own YouTube channel, you can get your email bootcamp by clicking the link below or scanning the QR code in the description. Now, back to the video. Let's get into Electro-Optics Systems. The company first gained popularity because it was able to come up with the best way to track objects in near-Earth orbit up to 22,369 miles or 36,000 kilometers away. This project was important because they needed to track the debris in space to ensure that it didn't hit any satellites in its way. Research shows that there are more than 29,000 pieces of space debris that are larger than 3.93 inches, and 670,000 pieces that are 0.3 inches that are randomly flying around in space. All this debris flying around in near-Earth orbit at incredible speeds could hit about 7 times harder than a bullet. EOS designed a radar system that helped with monitoring this debris in space to protect satellite systems. With all the research they've done, the company has been able to craft cutting-edge lasers that can measure small, fast-moving objects within 0.03 inches or 1 centimeter of accuracy. All of this has made them experts, and making defense products is just another way for them to share their talent. Another cool feature of the Australian Slinger is that it can be modified to anything with wheels. This means that Ukraine will be able to use it on armored personnel carriers and 4x4 trucks. EOS test engineer Charlotte Capper also commented on its technology, stating that it's very quick and easy to learn. You don't have to know much about the technology. It's easy to see what each thing does and how it does it. Okay, now we're going to talk about why these Slinger systems are going to be such a game changer on the battlefield and really reverse a lot of Russia's hard work. Up until this point, Ukraine did have other anti-air systems, but we're going to discuss the reasons why they weren't a hit. Firstly, Ukraine had access to the US Patriot and NASA MS systems. The problem with these systems is that they're costly to operate, as mentioned earlier. The cost of operating them could reach millions of dollars, and most of the time they're being used to take down $10,000 Shahed drones or FPV drones, which are much cheaper to produce. Ukraine has also been using the German Skynex air defense, and it is not disappointed on the battlefield. The Skynex is equipped to shoot down large tactical drones, air-to-ground missiles, mortars, and artillery rockets. The system is decked out with a 3D target acquisition radar, which is capable of identifying threats 31 miles or 50 kilometers away. It can operate up to 4 1.37-inch Mk3 revolver guns, which can fire up to 1,000 rounds per minute. The guns also come with tracking radars, TV, infrared cameras, and laser rangefinders to strike small targets. The limitation with the Skynex is that only 50 units are currently operational, and therefore Ukraine needed another anti-drone system to fight the war. Lithuania also donated thousands of Skywiper electronic drone mitigation systems to try and help Ukraine too. The EDM-4S is a handheld weapon that is used to neutralize small to medium drones. It's operated by one man, who points and shoots the weapon at targets at a range of 3.1 miles or 5 kilometers. The Skywiper works by jamming the radio frequency signals that are used to control the drone. This weapon works well in smaller areas, but just like the Skynex, it does not meet the demand in Ukraine. Furthermore, Russia has recently started using GPS jammers on the battlefield, which makes them less useful against drones. Another popular counter-drone system that Ukraine has used is the Terrahawk Paladin counter-drone system. It has a 1.18-inch Mk44 Bushmaster 2 autocannon with a digital fire control system and radar. The impressive gun fires airburst ammunition at a range of 1.24 miles or 2 kilometers and has a thermal sensor and a laser rangefinder. The Terrahawk is very similar to Germany's Skynex and is designed to perform point defense in an area of up to 1.86 miles or 3 kilometers using a radar suite. The Terrahawk's weakness is that it's a static weapon, meaning that it's very vulnerable to enemy counterfire. On top of that, Ukraine also has very few of these. Along with the Patriot system, the US has also donated its Vampire by L3 Harris. The Vampire is similar to the Slinger because it can be mounted onto most pickup trucks. It's a compact and palletized rocket launcher that's perfect for combat. The Vampire uses advanced precision kill weapon system rockets to take out targets with precision. It features a pod with 4 of these lethal rockets, but unlike the Slinger, it's not easy on the pockets. The advanced precision kill weapon system rockets cost $27,500 each, meaning that just 4 of them are over $100,000. The Vampire system also runs out of ammunition quickly during combat, making it less effective. During combat, imagine an operator having to run into an area to reload the weapon so it can get back into the fight. Things like this are an inconvenience and place the Slinger higher than the Vampire. The first thing that sets the Slinger system as a better option for Ukraine is the cost of operation. It makes more sense for Ukraine to set up the Slinger system because it can take down more drones for less. Systems like Skynex also cost millions of dollars to maintain and keep operational. The Slinger is a lot more adaptable than its foreign counterparts because it can be mounted onto vehicles or placed in a static position. It's also easy to replace and move, making it the best choice for Ukraine. We've established that the Slinger system will be an absolute hit, but we want to point out one reservation we have. So far, the Slinger has been tried and tested in situations where 1 or 2 drones are in the sky. In live fire demonstrations, we see the Slinger blowing up 1 drone at a time, which is still impressive. The thing is, in actual combat, Russia will be employing many drones in multi-axis attacks against Ukrainian positions. It's yet to be established if the Slinger will be effective in multi-threat engagements, but we'll know when Ukraine debuts these machines on the battlefield. As if the Slinger system isn't enough, we're going to take a look at other ways that Australia has assisted Ukraine. In July 2024, Australia pledged to offer Ukraine a whopping $250 million in military aid, making this the largest donation that Australia has made this far to the war effort. Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister Richard Marles met with President Zelensky and announced the package on the final day of the NATO summit in Washington, D.C. This military package will include guided and air defense missiles, anti-tank weapons, ammunition, and a shipment of boots. In total, Australia's donated over $1.3 billion to the Ukraine military. Mr. Marles commented on this arrangement, stating that, "This will not be the last package that we announce. We'll continue to support Ukraine for as long as it takes for Ukraine to resolve this conflict on its own terms." The Australian Defence Force has reportedly been training Ukrainian army recruits in the UK, and it will sign on as an operational partner to a new NATO command for Ukraine. Most of the international community has come together to support Ukraine in some way, but contributions like this show a long-term commitment to helping Ukraine fight against Russia. This aid, combined with the Slinger system, shows that Australia is committed to seeing Russia lose. Let's take a look at relations between Russia and Australia to determine the reasons that Australia is showing such strong support for Ukraine. In the beginning, Australia, along with other nations like the United States, United Kingdom, and Japan, imposed sanctions on Russia when it invaded Ukraine. Unlike nations like the US or Japan, Australia's support had nothing to do with personal vendettas. As a fairly neutral country, Australia's concern is the effect of letting Russia's aggression run unchecked. Australia understands that in order to keep the global balance and to avoid widespread war, countries like Russia cannot be allowed to win wars like this. Australia is also sympathetic to Ukraine's plight and wants to help it fight for its sovereignty. Australia stepping in to assist Ukraine with these war machines is a blessing because it's going to elevate Ukraine's air defense game. Equipped with these drone killers, Ukraine will be able to deliver deadly blows to Russian drones and other unarmed vehicles that it detects in the sky. Its state-of-the-art design and its pocket-friendly operation cost mean that Ukraine will be able to have a slight edge over Russia and deliver a decisive blow in the upcoming months.